starting out and establishing yourself as an artist is extremely difficult if you're actually trying to make a living. Art can be a real trap. And I see it all the time. I see young artists that are really, really, really talented, and they make a thing. People love it. So they make that thing over and over and over again because it pays the rent. And it stifles the development of the artist or the progression of an artist's career. I think the successful artist today needs to have what we call bread and butter art. I think Helen Semyonoff was maybe one of the best that pulled it off. She would do what she called bread and butter, these little prints of her watercolors. The watercolors, the originals, she never sold. She kept those originals. And, well, she did sell them, but very, very expensively, and they were hard to talk her out of. But she had these little prints that she had printed, beautiful work, and she bought little mats, all pre-cut, and she went to AFN, and she went to all of the fairs, the bazaars, and she sold those prints, and they were $15, $20. I mean, they were not expensive. Today you see them all over, and she sold hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know. That was her bread and butter. That paid the rent. And then she had these creative things that she did, and she traveled. She was the very first one that went to France to actually look at the masks, and she did a lot of creative things, but she had this bread and butter line that paid the rent. And it's that balance, and if you can find those things you can do that pay the rent, but still allow you that creative opportunity in a balanced format, that's a successful artist. I think the Made in Alaska, even concept, just conceptual Made in Alaska, is very, very, very good. Particularly in the South 48. Alaska's a hot item now. Reality TV is full of these farcical things. But at the same time, it puts Alaska into the mindset of the potential market. So Made in Alaska, I think, has a lot of potential, but it needs to be developed in conjunction with your product or your service, and it needs to fit. I mean, blown glass made in Alaska is not necessarily the best thing, but a wood product made in Alaska or a added value fish product made in Alaska has that synergistic kind of utilization of the geography of the name. Well, Silver Republic is very, very clearly ethnic, and it's indigenous. And there is a very strong market for indigenous work. And the silver hand clearly tells the consumer that they're buying something indigenous made. There are proponents and opponents to the silver hand program. It's worked extremely well for some artists. I think the craft side of the art has a better leverage with the silver hand. Much of our state is extremely rural. For me, there's rural, and then there's extremely rural. There's critical mass that's important in rural locations. Not all rural locations are destinations, and many of our entrepreneurial activities, opportunities today have to do with location. And visitor industry is a classic example. Not every village in the state is a destination for visitors, and that's a reality that you really have to recognize. And I have worked with many people that are interested in that industry, and they throw up their hands and say, well, it's not fair. It's not about being fair. Business is business. And if you're not in a destination location, why would you invest money in that type of business? However, you can do added value export from that position. The arts in Alaska are one of the largest exports from rural villages in the state. And there are certain artistic objects that are geographically placed. If you talk about Yupik baskets today, you can't talk about it without saying Hooper Bay. I mean, it is a classic example of an art form that's geographically founded, and the Hooper Bay basket becomes the measurement of almost every other basket made in the state. That kind of situation creates an opportunity. Now, you're not a destination for the tourist industry, but at the same time, you're a tremendous export opportunity just by virtue of Hooper Bay. Copper River red salmon, Copper River kings, geographically placed. King salmon's king salmon. I don't care if it comes out of Naknek or Old Harbor, it's king salmon. But that Copper River king is the first king. It's been marketed very nicely. And today, I venture, and I'm going to guess, there's more salmon eaten as Copper River salmon that didn't come from the Copper River, but it's that geographic identity with a product. And those are the kinds of things an entrepreneur can develop. Well, the general economy needs to be as good as it can get to support entrepreneurship. The native corporations are an exceedingly important piece of the economy of the state of Alaska. So at the 30,000 foot level, by creating a strong economy, they're helping all citizens, including entrepreneurs particularly. Now taking it one step and coming down to the 20,000 foot level, the Native community has been very supportive of Native entrepreneurship, and that's been at all levels. Village corporations, regional corporations, tribes, regional nonprofits, educational trusts, many, many, many levels have been focusing on the indigenous people of the state. Heavy, heavy investments in education. That's paramount to success in entrepreneurship. So I see it as sort of a vertically integrated activity that sort of affects all entrepreneurship across the state, particularly focused on Native entrepreneurship. I think for me, name recognition. I'm reasonably well known in the Native community. My activity level over the years has given me a lot of exposure. So it's a little like a politician. That name recognition actually means a lot. If you come out of the woodwork to run for office and nobody knows who you are, it's a difficult task as opposed to somebody whose has name recognition. So I think when I started actually doing commissions and selling work, I think the name recognition helped. Promotion and advertising as a concept is equally important. I promoted myself with some very, very fine visual handouts, and I promoted myself by being active in auctions, having been a director of the KMBA radio in the very beginning when we first started the radio, and then they have their native art auction, so I participated, and I think that helped recognition and setting value and setting price thresholds. I think that key placement of commission work is important. Sometimes a sale is not as important as who you sold it to. Don't give up. I mean, you keep looking. And I have a good friend in Manicodic, and he's an ivory carver, and he's learning to carve. And he promotes his stuff on Facebook, and once in a while he gets a sale, once in a while, but he doesn't give up, and you just gotta keep plugging at it. And there's no magic bullet. There's no magic that's gonna automatically, if I do this one thing, if I get this one piece of equipment, if I have, no, it's a constant examination and process. And this is where process leads to results.